been in these situations where we're riding and it does not go well. And I think we all react in these situations sometimes differently, but I bet you can relate to the story that we're going to share today of where something doesn't go well, but you end up a moment later, a split second later, laying on the ground, trying to piece it back together. And sometimes the pieces just don't make sense. And that's the story that we want to talk about today. So this came in from a member of our Horse Class Hub community. And I'm here with Andrea. If you don't already know us, I'm Callie, founder of Horse Class, and I'm here with Andrea, who is a horse-human relationship specialist and the founder of Wise Riders Club. And I want to just jump right in, and I'm going to read this story first. And I also want to thank the person that sent this in. They posted it anonymously on the group, probably for good reason. We have a very supportive group, but I understand when we post these kinds of stories, sometimes a lot of advice comes in. If you've ever posted online and you post sometimes just to kind of get it off your chest, and then you get 100 comments telling you a whole range of different things. So thank you for sharing this, for posting it, and I hope that what we share today does help give you some more ideas about what you can do for you and your horse going forward. Okay, so I'm going to read this directly. I wanted to get others' thoughts on something. My horse Grace has never reared or bucked with anyone on her. She's protested a little in the arena when I loped, but never did anything I thought was dangerous. We often run through trails without issue. Over the break, my husband and I were riding, and when we came to a big open field, he took off on his horse. I held Grace at a walk, but then gave her the rein and let her go. To me, it felt like she started bucking, but my husband didn't see it happen. I felt her entire body leave the ground, and when she came back down to the ground, she landed on her side instead of her feet, and I went flying. I think I panicked when she bucked, thinking I was supposed to pull her head to the side to disengage the hindquarters, which ended up making her turn her head midair and landing on her side. I have been riding her since at a walk and trot, but have been scared to go any faster since then. My husband rides her and never has any issues, so I really think it was something I did to trigger the episode. She's an excellent horse and has been the steady leader in some crazy situations. Neighbor's loose filly running at us and trying to nurse off her while I was riding. Neighbor's horse collapsing while on a ride with us. Other loose horses going crazy around us. Never any issues. Should I do something different or just continue to ride? Should I have pushed her through the bucking instead of trying to get her to stop? And she finishes, I told my husband I'm happy to go about my life at a walk trot. Andrea, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And actually, I'm going to ask you, have you ever been in a situation like this where a horse acts really out of character?
Oh gosh, so many times. Yeah, because I used to ride a lot of young horses and yeah, absolutely. And I think what really comes up for me listening to that story, and I really empathize with her. It's a very frightening situation, and confidence is a little bit like a piece of paper. Once you scrunch it up, you can flatten it out again, but there's creases, and that is just the reality of situations. But I think a piece that's important to look at is not focusing on did my horse buck, looking at the species, because we don't actually know what was going through that horse's head when this incident happened. For one, the horse got held back. So potentially its friend is leaving, it's done a giant leap to catch up. It may not have bucked, or it might have bucked. I've seen it before when I've had students and they've gone, oh my God, that horse just bucked, and they didn't. I'm not saying the horse didn't buck, but our bodies can feel a leap and think that it's a buck. The other piece of the puzzle is I've seen so many horses leap when they are concerned about what's under their feet. So they make a split-second decision. And let's say the horse stood on a stick as it was about to very safely canter off, and it went, whoa, what's that? And then, of course, A lot of people are trained to do a one rein stop. They can be very handy, but they can also, in the wrong situation, be a train wreck. And unfortunately, because the horse's feet was off the ground, as the head came round, the purchase was lost. So yeah, I think looking at horses as a species, you've said this before, Callie, many times, we like to attach a story to things, but we don't always know what the real story actually is, even when we're on top of the horse.
And I think when something like this happens, it's a balance between absolutely looking at it and saying, what can I learn? What can I do differently in the next situation? But also not allowing yourself to get stuck replaying it so many times that it takes away from the relationship between you and your horse, that it takes away the horse that is in front of you today when you go into the barn and when you step into the saddle. So I also would not necessarily put the energy into over analyzing what happened in that moment, but instead think about, okay, here, what are the points that you could learn? One is practicing a different kind of emergency technique, and these are the things with emergency techniques, whether it is how we're handling the reins, whether it's how we sit in the saddle, whether it's sometimes an emergency dismount. The way that we practice these things day to day, so for example, simply in handling the reins, the way that we practice them day to day is how we're going to respond in an emergency. Because when these split seconds happen, there's not enough time to think through, oh yes, I need to do this. Okay, how was that again in that video I watched? Your body's going to react with reflex. And
you need muscle memory.
Yeah. Yes. So whatever it is that you have trained is going to come out in that moment. And it's one of the things that I think is a large mistake that many teachers have taught, is so much practice of the one rein stop, because when that becomes automatic for the rider as a way to control the horse, it's not a safe technique in a lot of situations where there's any kind of speed involved, or sometimes depending on the terrain. So the one rein stop is something that I hardly ever use, and to be honest, I usually never even teach it to students. So a pulley rein, I feel, is a much better technique, and we'll share a video on that, but it's simply where you can put one hand into the neck and you can use the other hand in a pulley fashion. And it helps to keep your body more secure as well, because if you're starting to wing your arms around in these kind of situations, that's where you lose balance. Yeah. So that could be okay, here's a skill I can practice for going forward. And you can practice this to start to move up, if you want, and when you're ready, into faster movements and even back into a canter, but just going up for a few strides into that faster gait, and then using this technique in a gentle way to come back to the slower gait and build your confidence in, yes, I've got this rapport with my horse. I can ask her to slow down. I can ask her to speed up. We can do this together. And that will help you rebuild that confidence after this incident.
Yeah, absolutely. I've coached a lot of students through the fear of going faster. And we talk about the 1% rule. You can even be walking, trotting, and her saying to her husband, I'm happy with the walk and trot. I really applaud that. Don't make yourself feel ill at the thought of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go and run. No, you don't. Take it off the table. Get your confidence back in walk and trot. And I've even been coaching a student recently where I've said, even just sit down in the saddle and think about cantering, and then go back to posting. You don't even need to canter, but working on adding just that little 1% thing. Can I sit and think about a canter? Can I get 1 or 2 strides, like you said, Callie, and then come back? And having someone ride with you who's supportive of that, and just go, hey, can you be in front so I feel safer, but we're just going to do 2 or 3 strides and back to a trot. And we, having a supportive buddy to do that with can really, really help. But I think you're right, you can't judge the horse in that moment because we don't know the story. It was a moment in time. Your horse has, the lady that posted this, clearly this horse has so much positive experiences with her as a rider behind her that that is what she needs to focus on. Of course, that said, pain always has to be eliminated. Is the saddle still fitting? Are the teeth okay? Are the hooves okay? Is the body work needing to be done? That is always vital in any change of behaviour. But if it really was just a moment in time, finding a way to rebuild your confidence just piece by piece and get yourself back to where you were. But yeah, it's unfortunate that that happened, and I agree with Callie that the one rein stop at speed can be incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, so we would love to hear from others in our community if you have had experiences like this. And most importantly, what was a key point for you in coming back, in feeling confident again in general, maybe feeling confident with that specific horse? What was your learning from a time that it did not go well that you would like to share with others? So you can put that in the comments here. And we have different ways to support you, which is really what we're about here at Horse Class, is how can we support you moving forward? So I know this week, Andrea, you had quite a few conversations with members of our community about their path with their horse, their goals, and where they might be feeling stuck. Sometimes we get in those states where we just don't even quite know what we're looking for. We know that something's not quite right, but we don't know where we're going.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it can be very, very difficult. And you touched on this at the beginning when someone's getting so much advice from so many people and it's all completely different because everyone's advice is going through their own lens, their own filter. The unique thing that we can offer, I believe, is that we have worked collectively with thousands of students, thousands. So we can get to the root of problems quite quickly, of working out the individual issue between someone and their horse and helping them with a path and a really structured way to move forward rather than you should do this or you should do that. It's like, hey, let's take this step by step and guide you to get you to where you want to be. And I love doing it and talking to students about their individual challenges that they might be having. Just seeing people able through our guidance to turn things around it's the best job in the world. I love it.
So if you'd like to schedule a time with Andrea, we'll put the link down below in this video as well. And we've got lots of resources for you at horseclass.com. So thank you for watching. If you have any topics or questions for us, we'll be back next week and we'll be happy to discuss them.
Bye, guys.